welcome to our week 3 lecture. This week we are discussing rhetorical analysis. We had 2 readings for this week. First I'll talk about the Carroll article. The Carroll article started out by giving examples of how we make judgments in everyday life. And a rhetorical analysis essay is doing pretty much the same thing, making a judgment. And so first let's break down and look at the word rhetoric and what does that mean and how the article defines that. So in the Carroll article, rhetoric is defined as the way we use language and images to persuade. And so it's the use of different options you have as a writer or a speaker and how you use them effectively to send your message across. And there are 2 things you must remember. First, rhetorical messages occur in a context, and secondly, rhetorical messages are argumentative. So let's break each of these down. So first, rhetorical messages occur in a context. So what else is going on at the same time? What other factors might influence the message or how it is said? So that's what context means in general, but when applied to writing, we call this the rhetorical situation. So this just means that there's more to writing than just your message and what you are trying to say. There are things going on at the same time that have an impact to your message. And it's really your choice as a writer to make effective choices more than just what you're trying to say with your message. But how you want to say it is what you need to think about. So on project 2, we are going to be writing a rhetorical analysis essay. So we're going to be focused on analyzing someone else's argument. We aren't creating an argument of our own, but we're going to be breaking down or analyzing another argument. And in this case, we're going to be looking at an advertisement and analyzing the choices that they have made to create the advertisement. And so you'll want to look at the rhetorical situation of the advertisement that you have chosen. So a rhetorical situation responds to a problem, which is an exigence is the word that they used, but basically that's the concept. Exigence is just something that invites a response or motivates you to respond or motivates someone to do something about it or respond to it or question it. So this would also involve an audience who can respond. So the target audience of the advertisement that you're going to analyze would be a potential customer. And as a writer, whenever you're writing something, your target audience would be someone who is going to respond or do something about it. And then finally, a rhetorical situation has constraints that limit the message. And constraints are not a bad thing. It just usually helps to focus the message. But for example, in our case, I'm your teacher. And so I have placed, set constraints on this assignment. For example, the length, the format, there's deadlines. So those are all examples of a constraint that you would have on your message. So the other important part to remember when looking at rhetorical messages is that they are argumentative. So the advertisement that we are choosing and any advertisement in general is an argumentative message. It's trying to persuade and it's trying to sell something. So in order to look at that argument more closely, we can look at something called rhetorical appeals. So these 4 different concepts have been established as four main ways to effectively persuade an audience. And those are logos, ethos, pathos, and keros. The fourth one wasn't mentioned in the Carroll article, but that's why I added the second reading, and that one's addressed in the second reading because it's also important, especially when it comes to an advertisement and writing arguments for our class, because I think our third project is an argument. So we can look at these rhetorical appeals as we look at the advertisement to see if the advertisement is using any of these. And then we can evaluate the quality of how well they have done by looking at each of the appeals that they have used. So let's look at each one. So the first one was logos. So logos is an appeal to logic, reasoning, intellect. So it's the main component of an argument. It's the reasons. So it includes facts, statistics. So for example, say you are looking at a car ad and they're going over facts about the car or safety ratings. They're giving you reasons for why you would want to purchase the particular car. So that is using logos, and that is what you would mostly use in a written argument. However, all four of these are used when you're looking at a visual advertisement. Okay, so the next one, ethos. So you're more likely to be persuaded by a message if you trust the speaker. So is the speaker credible? Are they trustworthy? Do we trust the business or the brand? Or maybe they use a celebrity spokesperson. All of these are them using ethos. They are appealing to their character. And so another example of this would be if we were writing an argument essay and using sources, which we will be doing later in the semester. You would want to use credible sources, good, trustworthy sources, to develop your ethos. The next one, pathos. So this is an appeal to emotion. This really isn't used in argumentative writing, but it is definitely used in advertisements. And so this will connect the audience to the message on a personal level, an emotional level. So anytime an argument or an advertisement, in this case, elicits emotion from the reader or the viewer, and that can be any kind of emotion, humor, shock, worry, concern, nostalgia, any of those. If it elicits any kind of emotional response, this is them using pathos. It's a very good way to quickly appeal to your audience and connect with your reader, and it's definitely used in advertisements. Not really used in written argument. And then finally, the last one, keros, that was added on in the last reading. And this has to do with the timeliness of the argument. So the right message at the right time. So it'll connect the reader to a current issue or context. So for example, like maybe you are doing a public service announcement and it might refer to a current issue going on in our world right now. Or circumstances that we are going through right now, which makes it very relevant to the viewer or the reader, which makes the reader or viewer more likely to engage with the message because it's something they may have been concerned with. And so this is important because of the timeliness. And then finally, to sum up, we just want to remember when we're analyzing the article, we're looking at two things. So first, the context, so the what and how, the stuff that affects that, the audience, the constraints and whatnot. And then finally, the argument itself and these 4 appeals that they could be using, the rhetorical appeals you want to look for each one. So these are all potential things to mention and discuss when you are organizing your essay and looking at your advertisement. So that's it for this week's lecture. You can go ahead and take your reading quiz, and then I will leave an announcement in the announcement section with more information about this project when we're working on it. So I hope you guys have a great week, and just reach out if you have any questions.